Hi, this is Billie Beene here with another segment of Billie Beane's Alien Disclosure by Redneck, Part 33. Humans created by God, not seeders. Some of the things we'll cover: history, 4 types of beings currently on Earth. We'll distinguish between what is incarnate, what is born, and plus. And I'd like to say thanks, like, subscribe, and share. Thanks for your words of encouragement and support for my channel. I have a subscribe button on the lower right corner of my screen. And I'd like to say welcome to all 50 states, including Alaska, Hawaii, the First Nations, Cherokee, Navajo, Hopi, Chickasaw, Mohawk, Apache, First Nation, Pitt River, California, Mohegans, Yakama Nation in Washington State, Potawatomi in the Midwest and Oklahoma, Ojibwe Nation in northern Minnesota, a proud people who want peace and justice, Choctaw, Abenaki tribe, Cheyenne, Massanutten, Pequot, Blackfoot in Montana, Spokane and Coville, Powhatan, and the nations of Canada, England, France, Ireland, Philippines, South Africa, Netherlands, also called Holland, Indonesia, Scotland, Germany, Switzerland, New Zealand, Maldives, Nepal, Norway, Australia, Chile, Thailand, Belgium, Mexico, Brazil, Russia, Panama, Guam, a U.S. territory, Jamaica, an Icelander living in Spain, and other people in Spain, Wales in the U.K., Sweden, Italy, Puerto Rico, a U.S. territory, Romania, Bermuda, Bahamas, British territories, Morocco, Argentina, Northern Marianas, a U.S. territory, Denmark, Bolivia, Uganda, Iceland, Serbia, Bulgaria, Mauritius, and the newest, Ukraine, the Czech Republic, Poland, Costa Rica, and Malta. So let's get started. Recently, we've been seeing a lot on the different channels about we have ETs, aliens with us, who are saying, yes, we're the seeders and we created humans and we brought life to Earth, which I don't believe, and so I'm going to present why this is really not true. So, some of my sources are Decode, Dr. Michael Salla, James Gilleland, Peter the Insider with the ACIO, Jessica Areal, Marrocco, E Danaan, Elena Kopolnik, and other people. Okay. So now, first of all, I'm going to draw what is the current number of planets in our solar system. And we have a universe, and a universe is made of many galaxies, and in these galaxies are multiple solar systems. So our solar system is called the Milky Way. And it currently has, according to Gene Decode, 11 planets. Okay, the first was discovered in 1860 by a French astronomer. It's called Vulcan. And I've known about this for a long time. It's actually in the corona of the sun, so it's not visible. And then we have Venus, Mercury, Earth, Mars, that we're familiar with. And then after Mars, we have another, it's called Sirius, which is actually a remnant of the planet Tiamat. And I'll be covering Tiamat. And we've become familiar with this planet Ceres recently through a book by super soldier Tony Rodriguez. So we have Ceres, and then we have Jupiter, Saturn, Uranus, Neptune, and Pluto. So this gives us 11 planets according to gene decode. Now we'll talk about Tiamat, and talk about a timeline. So on this timeline, about 500,000 years ago, we had Tiamat, which was another planet out in space in our solar system that had humans on it. There was also at this point in time what's called Eden Earth, which also had humans on it. And then there was an invasion in our solar system by the Alpha Draco reptilians, who also had a slave race, the Anunnaki. And they attacked Earth, Tiamat, and blew it up. Now, from this, there were ships from Tiamat that brought the survivors of this planet, Tiamat, 500,000 years ago to Earth. Earth already had an indigenous population on it of humans, as did Tiamat. All humans were created directly by God. So in the future, if you're hearing these species that are in space around us saying, oh, we're the seeders, we're your gods, we created humans. No, that isn't true. So this happened in the past. Now, we have on our timeline, then we have 500,000 years ago on Earth. Then came the humans from Tiamat. There were already humans on Earth. And also when the Alpha Draco reptilians blew up Tiamat, a remnant of it then became Ceres, which is currently in our solar system. And then we come to 445,000 years ago, the Alpha Draco reptilian. So the Draco reptilian and their slave race, the Anunnaki, came to Earth to mine for gold, because they had destroyed their home planet also. They needed gold to put in their atmosphere to bring an atmosphere back around their planet. They wanted to force humans to mine. Humans at this point in time had 64-strand DNA. And Gene Decode brought this out, and this is one of the points that helped me realize that Gene Decode, when he went through his near-death experience and spent half an hour with God, and God downloaded to him the next 1,000 years, yes, he did have specific information that agreed with information God had given me when I was young. And one of those things was Adam and Eve could do these miraculous things in the Garden of Eden. Just have a seed and think, and it would become a plant. Travel by thought, move things, telekinesis, and other abilities. I understand now this comes from having the 64-strand DNA, which Jesus also had when he came on Earth, which is, I've done a previous video, that's why it was biologically impossible for Jesus to have mated with a human, because we currently have a 2-strand DNA. But at any rate, and Kerry Cassidy put out an excellent video recently telling some truth, and that was that some of the things that Jesus could do on Earth was a product of his 64-strand human DNA, like raising the dead, healing people and other passing through walls. And yes, those capabilities came with the human 64-strand DNA. Now, after he got was crucified, he went into his God stuff then, going down to hell and taking things away from Satan and that. But many of the things he did during his ministry was a product of 64-strand DNA. Okay, so the Draco, Reptilian, and their slave race Anunnaki could not force humans to mine for them. So what they did 445,000 years ago was create a species called mankind. Now, prior to the Anunnaki, Draco, reptilians coming to Earth, other species had been coming to Earth and had engaged in genetic manipulation, or they had imported other species to this planet, such as Cro-Magnon, Neanderthal. Okay, so then when the Alpha Draco reptilians came, they couldn't force humans to mine gold. They engaged in genetic manipulation and mixed Cro-Magnon, Neanderthal, along with some of their own DNA, the Draco reptilian Anunnaki. And they produced a hybrid mankind. Now, they could force the mankind to mine gold for them, but they weren't very good at it. So eventually, they came back and they wanted to force humans to mine, and they eventually, through genetic manipulation, gained the ability to break the block that God had put into human DNA, and that was our blood type O+. And so these species changed the blood type and then brought in the A and B and AB and the RH plus and negative. Now, Gene Decode says it doesn't matter what your blood type is. That doesn't indicate you're mankind or not human. Nothing. It just indicates how easy it would be for you to be hybridized. It doesn't indicate that you're not human. So, okay, so they were able then to genetically manipulate and change the blood types. Then what they did, there were humans on Earth. They took a female egg that had been fertilized by a male human. They removed the DNA. They put into this fertilized egg these other forms of genetics: Cro-Magnon, Neanderthal, Anunnaki, Draco, Reptilian. Then they produced Cain. Now, there were other humans on the earth, as I've demonstrated. So Cain took one of these humans, and we know that Cain would have been a hybrid. And he made it and had children. And then Gene Decode says that the Alpha Draco did this generation by generation. So we had Cain. He had a wife. This was generation 1. He had children. So they would have taken one of the females who had a fertilized egg, taken the human DNA out, put in the hybrid DNA, and this would have been generation 2. So then they did this for 13 generations, making up the 13 bloodlines that we refer to as the deep state or the Illuminati or different types. And then, so we have the 13 bloodlines, and they were the hybrids, and they called themselves blue blood, indicating their blood is different from human blood. And they retained some of the qualities of the Draco reptilians. They could shapeshift and other things. Now, a big qualifier is they have no souls, and they have no spirit. They have no life from God. Therefore, they had to consume humans to continue living. So now we have on the earth, we have E.T. This is the group I call E.T.s. These are the fallen angels. They were created by God. They are eternal beings, but they were kicked out of heaven, and when that happened, God severed that lifeline they had to God, and they no longer received spirit and life from God, and they could not reproduce. So now they have engaged in creating hybrids who have no souls and no spirit and have to consume humans. Now we have another group that's called non-terrestrial species that are on Earth and who have, here we have mankind and we have humans. Now, humans in our DNA, through the millions of years of efforts by the Alpha Draco reptilians, who are ETs, fallen angels, to do everything they can to tap down the DNA strength of humans. So now we're down to 2 strands. The gene Decode brought this out, that embedded in our DNA is the etheric, the spirit blueprint of all other species. Non-terrestrial species were also created by God. And they do have souls, and they do have spirit. They have life from God, as we do. We have souls and we have spirit. Now, this mankind, hybrids, have over millions of years mated with humans. I do not know exactly how this works, but Gene Decode said, like some have 75% mankind DNA, and they're distinct from the hybrids, which is mankind and human, who have 52% and up human DNA. I have to believe in my concept of things that an individual with 75% DNA from mankind most likely does not have a soul nor spirit from God, and thus must consume humans. And we know this is going on all over the planet. This is why there are these deep underground areas. Now, this 52% human DNA plus, I believe, most likely has a soul and a spirit, life from God. Now, Gene Decode brought out some new information recently that I had not heard, and we're beginning to understand much of what we've been taught is not true. And we've heard that there are 777 books of the Bible. They've been found under the Vatican, and they're being translated and due to begin release soon. Now, Decode says in these books, one was this book that talked about mankind and humans and the difference. And he also said Jesus, who many call Yeshua, had more sermons on the Mount than were given in our current Bible. And one of the sermons was to tell humans, don't marry, don't mate with mankind. So that's going on. So now on Earth, we have 4 different groups. We have ETs, the fallen angels, and then they mated with humans and made the Nephilim, the giants. We have non-terrestrial species, and we are becoming familiar with species from planets like Andromeda, Arcturus, Pleiades, and other star systems. Okay, non-terrestrial. Then we have mankind. They're not human, and we have humans. So it's very important now that we are going through a transition period where we are hearing about these non-terrestrial species like the Intergalactic Council. We have the Galactic Federation of Worlds. Now what I'm understanding is, here's our Milky Way galaxy, and we're our little solar system. I understand the Galactic Federation of World is composed of species who come from inside our galaxy. So this would be from stars that we're familiar with. The Intergalactic, this is Intergalactic Council, come from outside our galaxy. So these are entirely different species. And I will say so far, these 2 groups have not identified themselves in terms of what kind of species they are. Okay. So now, we're up to where we are now. So let's get a timeline going. So we saw Tiamat 500,000 years ago. Then we saw 445,000 years ago. Now this is a current timeline. And I begin with Genesis 1, chapter 1, verse 1, and chapter 1, verse 2, often called the gap theory. And this supposedly lasted for millions of years and included the events of Atlantis and Lemuria plus. Okay. Now we have Adam and Eve, and we have Jesus. So this is about 6,000 years ago. Now I want to bring in this group, the ACIO, Alien Contact Intel Organization. And the representative is Peter the Insider. He's the director of the 12th Division that deals with relations between other species. And the other species that are coming to this earth, some are okay, some are opportunistic, and some are monsters. So Yeah, that's going on. Now, the ACIO has records going back 40,000 years. They have like a quantum computer. Because I had wondered about so many individuals we hear, super soldiers and other people, 100% of whom have been abducted as children by non-terrestrial species, by the ETs, by these bloodlines on Earth, hybrids. Okay, I even saw one book and said, oh, yeah, this species is okay because they only engage in benevolent abductions. And I'm thinking, are you kidding me? There's nothing benevolent about being kidnapped as a child and then subjected to MK Ultra or satanic ritual abuse, extreme rape and torture, and to crack the mind so you can take control of them. There is nothing benevolent about that. Okay. So now, I had wondered how this was working because some individuals said even their mother would have been genetically manipulated while the individual was inside the mother's womb. And I wondered, how are these people being identified? I believe they're being identified by the records that the ACIO has, which are quantum records, quantum computer records going back 40,000 years that are tracking the bloodline. And these individuals, this ACIO, is cooperating with these other species coming to Earth and manipulating and kidnapping and breeding with and genetically manipulating humans. And I'm assuming this would also include the mankind hybrids. And we know that some are mostly human. So this is going on. And now we have all these things happening on the Earth. We have inside the Earth is heating up and expanding. We do have a cosmic event coming. I think recently suspicious observers, Ben Davidson and other science-based groups are talking about micronova, solar flash, and I believe that Stephen Ben-Nun, Israeli News Live, is with this inside information from the Pentagon, is also bringing this forth. Okay. So now this is impacting DNA all over the Earth, and now we're hearing about these Ark ships. And they have beings on them who have no souls, who are giants. So currently, this group of species is unidentified. We do not know who these beings are. Now I'll distinguish between incarnate and born. Okay, we have individuals who are talking about being incarnated, choosing to be born on Earth, incarnate. This is distinct from individuals created by God. Incarnate is indicative of an individual coming to Earth and either taking over a body, which they talk about doing, called walk-ins, as if an individual can choose to be born on Earth. I submit to you that these individuals have lost touch with God over millions of years. They have replaced God with a disembodied, like, force or source or technology. They have lost touch with God, who is a living, breathing individual. He's also a singularity and embedded in every particle, everywhere in multiverses. But he's also a living, breathing individual. These individuals are not being born on Earth by God. Now, reincarnation is real, but it does not come from God. This is another point that I could get on board with gene decode, because I've known since I was young that human souls could be stolen, but most likely that reincarnation was real. I just couldn't figure it out. Okay, I'll link, I've done a previous video on it. I'll link it for you briefly. This is from Satan. And what happens is a soul is leaving Earth, and I do not believe that this occurs with Christians. I believe it occurs with individuals who are not Christians. And they're leaving the Earth, and they see a bright light and go toward it. We're not to, if we're leaving Earth, don't go toward the light. Go this way and you're immediately with God, according to Gene Decode and Sarge of Icons, who've been through this experience. So if you go to the light, is Satan or one of his representatives is there who says, oh, you've got to go back. You didn't do this or that, so you've got to go back and live again. Then they have a processing area. I think that was somewhere around Saturn, and there was a moon in this area, and this is where they actually process souls. And so the soul was outside of the body, leaving Earth, and then was tricked by Satan to come back, and then Satan would say to the individual, time for you to incarnate. Time for you to go to Earth and take over a human body or a mankind body. And they actively talk about walk-ins. And now they're now born. This is from God. Inside God is our spirit created that gives us life from God. Also in this spirit is our destiny and all of our capabilities we need to fulfill our destiny. Now, God chooses our parents, and that gives us our physical body. God chooses where we're going to be born and the date we're going to be born. These individuals are saying, I choose to come to Earth. I choose to incarnate, and I come to Earth somehow and take over a body, or I possess a body. Incarnate, not of God. So now we have many individuals on Earth talking about being incarnated. And this is born. This would be humans. This, I have to guess, is mankind, not human. Okay, and they're talking about now with the Ark Ships, that are all over the Earth and throughout our solar system. Ships, okay. And they have these blue giants on them who have no souls. And the Ark Ships are activating. And what activates them is certain types of DNA. What is unclear to me so far is whether it has to be human DNA or it's mankind DNA. That's unclear to me. But what these individuals are saying is it requires a living body. who is conscious. So it requires a living body who is conscious and has certain DNA, and they freely say that the incarnated beings are inside the bodies of either humans or mankind. And they're being activated, and then as they're activated, they can crew the ships. Now, Alex Collier explained about the Ark Ships. He said, when they're made, the crew, while they're gearing up, and they have crystal technology, which has a form of consciousness. Now, there's a Christian, Hangman 1128, and his ministry is documenting the huge ancient trees that go on for miles that are now disguised as hills or plateaus or small mountains, but they were actually ancient trees who petrified, became rock, and then became crystal. I submit to you, this is a form of consciousness, going from a living tree to a rock to crystal. Okay. So now Alex Collier said the Ark ships are made of a crystal that has an awareness or a consciousness or a frequency. And that when they are built, the crew comes underneath it and puts their hands up. Then there's a bonding process between the ship and the crew, and their frequency is known. So now, these Ark ships can only be crewed by the individuals who were originally bonded to them in the ancient past. So now all these things are going on. All right. So now we are at a point that, now this is gene Decode. He's talking about mankind and humans. And we have to reckon if mankind has 75% or up of mankind DNA, gene Decode says, and they took the pharma for the arm, that they are going to die. If they have 52% and up human DNA, they'll simply get very sick and revive unless they have other health issues. Then they will die. But the pharma for the arm will begin to clear out the mankind DNA in these individuals. And also, the med beds will clear the mankind DNA from individuals who are human 52% and up, and it will also restore humans to our original DNA, which would be 64 strand. So that's coming up. All right. So the purpose of this video today has been to bring out that, and also gene Decode says in the chemtrails, the white hats have replaced HCQ and the chemtrails, which also kills mankind. If they have 75% up mankind DNA, the HCQ will kill them. All right. So, now, Alex Collier said these individuals are called starseed. And they declare they come from the 24 cedar species and we made man. Nope, not true. All right, 200 million on the earth who have incarnated, not born by God, and they have taken over mankind. Now, for my part, I don't believe they can take over a Christian body. I think they could, because we Christians, we take in Jesus. We have protections over our spirit. I'm assuming that they're mostly going into mankind. Okay. Now, they're saying that they're incarnating in these bodies, and this individual who is incarnating has the skill set to operate the Ark ships, and that they remember it from a previous life. They've gone through reincarnation. It's not a process that comes from God. Now, some individuals are claiming that they have certain DNA. E Danaan, JP, the Army whistleblower that often works with Dr. Michael Salla, are claiming they have 22 strand DNA. And that some of the other starseed have 6 or 7 or 8 strand DNA. Now, is it possible to determine who is mankind, who is incarnated, who is a starseed, who is human? Yes. The white hats have devices that operate on frequency. And yes, they can distinguish who is who. They can even distinguish if it's a human body and has a demon inside, spirit inside it. They can determine that. So that's going on. Now, one of the things that I have seen, and I think that was Jenny Lee, a Christian seer, that when the group that Cliff High calls the normies, the people who watch TV and they believe this is the real world, when they become awake and they understand that we have all these non-human beings on earth who consume humans, who abduct young humans, and who do horrible things upon the earth and want to keep us enslaved and poison our food and our water and the skies. Okay. When these individuals become awake, and what I had seen was they're going to see the evidence against these individuals holographically in the sky. Now, I figured out you couldn't have children seeing these horrible things they do. So I think the people who are going to be able to see the holograph in the sky is based on frequency. If you're adult or, not a child, that you'll be able to see these videos of these monsters doing monstrous things in the sky. Now, we've been hearing about this holographic technology, and just the last couple of days comes this out, that Russia has this time reverse scalar wave weapon, But one of the things it can do is it can put in the sky a real-time holograph. So now we're seeing a current technology that could produce this. And these normies that wake up and see these holographs and all these horrible things, yeah, are gonna like take their ropes and jerk these people out and administer justice. Now, for my part, I think they should take a recorder, somebody who writes down their name and the date and time that justice is meted out, because they're not going to be able to defend themselves because it's videoed. So that's coming. So it's an exciting time to be alive. As has come out in the course of this video, is that with the med beds, we can be returned to this original Adam and Eve 64-strand DNA that Jesus, whom many call Yeshua, also had on the earth, and other things. It's a wonderful time to be alive on the earth. I'm bringing this out because this is my job, to bring out this truth and distinguish all these little pieces so that we are awake and aware and we are not deceived. Okay, here's a cleansing prayer modeled by Gene Decode. We remove permission to be in us, on us, around us, on earth, off-world, any dimension, any person, place, or thing not of God, any assemblage of fallen angels, AI, nanobot, and other forms of tech, any non-terrestrial species, spirit, thought form, operating system, genetic overlay, past, present, and future. And we say, get away from us in the name of Jesus. Okay, this prayer is 848, the names of God, from Psalms 18, and it comes from the King James Version and also Passion Translation. It's entitled, My High Tower. Psalms 18, the Lord is my rock, my fortress, my deliverer, my God, my strength, my buckler, my horn of salvation, my high tower. Psalms 144, my God is my high tower. He is the one I trust. He subdues our enemies under us. And now, this is from the Passion Translation, Psalms 18. I am bonded to you, my God. You are my forever firm fortress, my tower of rescue where none can reach me. It is God who gives us strength for the battle. He is our shelter of love and our fortress of faith. He is our shield and our high tower. And we ask, O Father, guard us, save us from our enemies, and deliver us to our future, we and our children. And we say thank you, Father, Son, Jesus, whom many call Yeshua, and the Holy Spirit. And I say to my family and friends, remain steady out there, continue to pray. God is in charge, and He is on the move. I love you, and I'll see you soon.